It's neither good nor bad. But you see, if you can't...
Do you watch them, for example?
No, I don't. I'm not particularly interested in them. But I would champion the right to people to watch films
So you haven't seen them?
Of that genre. Yes, I've seen some, of course I have, of that genre, if they so wish. And I think, if I may say so, that the nonsense that is talked, that anything that anybody sees on a television screen, or a video film on a television screen or a cinema screen, they automatically and compulsively go out and replicate it, copy it, imitate it. That may be the advertising world's pipe dream, but it is in reality a myth.
John
it is a nonsense.
What would you say to that?
Well, first thing I like to say is this is very gendered. And the gendered aspect of this so often gets lost. Women and men actually don't agree about this. Of course, some women do watch video nasties, I'm sure, and some men don't. But it's a very gendered issue, and the gendered aspect of it has not had sufficient discussion.
Would you like to tell us exactly what you mean by that?
Well, what I mean by that is that women really have a very different understanding about violence than men do. And I've spent years interviewing women about violence against women. We have some access to interviews in relation to men about how they understand violence. Men and women actually don't share the same views, and this is partly because of the way masculinity is constructed and the way femininity is constructed.
The violence is usually against women in these kind of films.
That's right, and it's men who are violent and women who are the recipients of violence and so on. But the video actually introduces yet another subject, and that's the one of age. You see, who brings the video into the house and who watches it? And it's all very well to talk about this is a matter of choice. In fact, very often in homes there are captive audiences who have not chosen to watch that. There is one television set, one front room, one lounge, and the video goes on, and anybody who's in that space watches it.
But for those people who are consenting adults, is there anything wrong in eroticism? That's healthy.
Oh, no, I don't think there's anything wrong in eroticism at all, and I don't think there's anything wrong with sexuality. But I think there is the kind of question mark around violence. But I do think we can't just... I think we should lose these terms consenting adults and talk about men and talk about women and talk about children. And who has consented to watch what, and who is there because it's in their front room and they really don't have a lot of choice about it.
What sort of effect does it have, do you think, on men who are watching? There's a huge debate going on at the moment about whether or not men who watch a lot of these kind of violent acts against women on video go out and do the same thing. Do you think that there's anything in that?
Well, I think... Usually the answer to that is probably no, they don't. But there is a small group, of course, who do. And if you talk to the people who work with sex offenders and violent offenders, you will find that videos, visual material, has played a role often in the kinds of crimes which they've committed. Now, admittedly, this is a very small... Well, it's a very, very small number we're talking about. But, of course, it does happen. That obviously isn't the impact on most people.
David Webb, what would you say about that, though, that some people interviewed by psychologists, people who've been convicted rapists, say they have been influenced by watching video nasties?
Well, we're all influenced by everything we see in life. It contributes to, making us what we are. No one's denying that. But it's only a tiny part of the multitude of influences that go to contribute towards the sort of characters and people we
How far down the line would you go, though? Would you allow snuff videos? Would you allow...
No, of course not. But there are plenty of laws to take care of the making of snuff videos. It's a criminal offence to cause them. I mean, since you've mentioned it, snuff videos, there has never been put forward a piece of evidence of a real snuff movie.
No, I was just finding out how far you would go if there were.
It is a wonderful device that these pro-censorship fanatics, like Michael Allison, who, of course, he represents the Godbothers. He represents the Godbothers. He's one of the Church of England commissioners, and it's his slot he's fighting for. And he's not saying, as he should, as an MP should, look, for people to be free to choose for themselves, and he belongs to a party, then that's supposed to be the cornerstone of their philosophy.
Let Michael Allison answer that, and also let's have his comment about whether or not he thinks that video nasties actually affect people's behaviour.
Well, I've enjoyed the dialogue so far. I've really been put on the spot as I'm not quite certain what I would call a God spotter or something like that.
No, God botherer, not a God follower.
All right,
botherer.
Mr. Webb. Mr. Allison.
I couldn't quite get it. God came into it, and I'm very happy that God should come into it. But I think that I would like to slightly reduce the temperature. I'm not at all a pro-censorship person, but I think one has to keep a reasonable perspective here. There are acceptable laws on our statute book for regulating how people behave and what they do. We regulate and disallow the sale and wide circulation of drugs. We definitely have laws on obscenity for the publication of pornographic
alcohol
material.
Mr. Webb, just a moment. Mr. Webb, you've had quite a long time. Mr. Allison, can I bring you back to this point about
Yes.
whether or not you think there is a connection between watching video nasties and people going out and doing similar things, committing rapes and violence?
Yes, I would have said that there is enough evidence. I'm not sure that you could say it's absolutely decisive and 100% sure, but there's enough evidence that there is a link between what some people see and learn and get initiated into in their imagination by viewing television or viewing video nasties, and they're then going out to enact physically, very often against women or children, and children between children, what they have seen, to mean that it is necessary for reasonable people to agree that the benefit of the doubt, and if there is a doubt, give the benefit of the doubt to the victims, to the potential victims, be they children or vulnerable women. If there's any doubt at all, give the benefit of the doubt to the possible victims.
Mr. Webb, is it not the case that it's the message that's coming over that matters? It's not really a genitalia count, but the message is that this is violent to women, this is sometimes violent to children, and even if we're talking about something which is purely erotic, it's not the amount of genitalia, it's whether or not the message coming over is one of violence. Don't you think that that is the heart of the matter?
Well, can I just take up this point about it's violent to women? I resent the feminist factions always saying that this is pornography equals violence against women.
A lot of it is, though. Some of the videos...
I've never heard of anything so stupid in my life. Violence is violence is violence. No one's condoning that.
In these videos, Mr. Webb, it's usually committed against women.
These depict violence against men and women very often. So, I mean, that argument is not as... What Jalna's really saying is that I don't like men. I don't like the dominance that men have in this society, and let's use everything we know, everything in the book, every device to try and do something about that. And poor old pornography is the scapegoat for all of society's ills, and that's what these MPs. I sat in the House of Commons last Tuesday at the Standing Committee of the Public Order and Criminal Justice Bill.
Judith.
What would you say to that?
Well, I really don't think if one objects to violence against women that one necessarily makes the connection that one hates men. I really think that is a misrepresentation, and quite a serious one. We actually have to take violence against women and children seriously. We have to take the representation of violence against women and children seriously, and against men, and against other groups, because some of this is aimed at particular groups, like black groups or people who live in other parts of the country.
And just a moment, Mr. Webb. Have you seen this material?
Yes. I have seen some of it. I wouldn't say I'm not an expert. I haven't watched everything, but I've seen some of it, and some of it is aimed at other forms of dominance and submission, which is to do with countries of the North, countries of the South, racial groups, and so on.
Some people like being dominated, and some people like to submit, and they should be free to do that and express it on film or video if they so want.
Mr. Webb, could we just be polite enough to let Jalna finish what she's saying?
Now, the thing about it is that while this is true, some people do like to be dominant, and they like other people to submit. And it's usually more often that way than it is the other way around. What is actually happening is a lot of people are being caught up in this who actually aren't very interested in either of those two things. So, for example, if one asks people about their experiences, has anyone ever asked you to do anything which they've seen in a video nasty or pornographic film or whatever, a significant proportion of women will say yes. By significant, I mean maybe 10%, maybe a bit more, something of that kind. And in terms of the number of children, and obviously you showed the Bulger case earlier, children caught in the front room having to watch films, this is also a very large percentage. I don't know what it is, but once again, we're in the same position. So it's not about choice, and I think this really has to be knocked on the head quite firmly.
Right. Can I move now to what we might do about it, if anything? I know Mr. Webb thinks nothing, but John Griffiths, you, as I said before, at the coalface, what would you do now? Have you enough powers, do you think, or would you like more, tightening up of legislation?
The powers we actually have are quite good. On occasions, we have to take action using additional powers. But because we are a department that has a lot of resources in the way of legislation at our disposal, we can usually get the matter before the courts and get sentences through ways and means.
Should it be you who's doing it? Some people have said it should really be the police or somebody with a bit more of a strong arm.
Well, we have a very strong arm, and we work very closely with the police on all these matters. One of the snags that there is under the Obscene Publications Act, you have to define what is obscene. That is very difficult, and really that is one of the cruxes of the matter. That has to be defined clearly.
Right.
As a result of that, the matter falls under the Video Recordings Act, which we're responsible for enforcing.
Right. Mr. Allison, Member of Parliament, what would you do about it, and what are you trying to do?
Well, I think we have got to face the problem which came to the fore with the Bulger case and the evidence that a lot of material in a video form, which is definitely categorized and specified as not being suitable for children under 18 or under 15 for that matter, is being taken into the home, and for whatever reason in the home is being viewed and seen by children for whom it's not meant to be viewed and seen by definition of the certificate.
But are you sure that censorship is the answer? Because in the past, historically, it hasn't been thinking of prohibition, thinking about the drugs case and so on.
No, I'm not talking about censorship. I'm talking about making effective the existing British Board of Film Centre certification, so that if films are likely to be taken into the home in video form, then it should bear a new designation or category which is unsuitable for home viewing. That doesn't mean to say it can't be seen. But would that do any good at all? It doesn't mean to say it can't be seen in a cinema or in a cinema club. But if it bears the category unsuitable for home viewing, it means that children might possibly see it and suffer serious damage psychologically or mentally as a result of that. That would mean that the ineffectiveness of certification for videos which might be taken into the home would be upheld.
I'm going to have to stop you there, I'm afraid, Mr. Allison. We're out of time. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Join us once again for Close Up North next week. Good evening.
So, should video nasties be censored, or should they be freely available to adults and children? Do you think that they can affect our behaviour, or are they harmless entertainment? Well, call me now on the Close Up North Night Talk phone-in. The number is 0532 443 222. That's Leeds 443 222, and the lines are open now.